Thank you for browsing page 121. I've been going through a lot of character creation rules in the last week or two in preparation for my new upcoming Traveler campaign. And one thing I've noticed that kind of jumped off the page at me by its absence is no mention of family. There's a little mention here and there in mishaps or events, maybe a family member did this or something like that, but there are no tables or anything to tell you how many family members you have. Now, I realize that you don't need tables for that. You can simply just jot down how many family members you have, and you're close to them, estranged from them, whatever you want to do. But this can really drive a lot of story. And having a table for it could be a good way for a character to go in a direction maybe they didn't expect. Maybe they're going into the Navy because their father was in the Navy, or an uncle, or maybe they're a Navy family. If that's the case, it's important for the character to breathe life into the family that went before him and led to his choices going into the Navy. I'm just surprised there aren't any real generational rules in Traveler. Now, there might be, and I might have missed them, but I don't remember any talking about siblings or children, parents, anything like that in Traveler character creation. You're starting the game at 18 years old. Most cases, you'd have some family around you. Maybe your backstory is that you had no family, and that's why you went into the service or something like that, and that certainly happens. But I'm just surprised that it's never really been addressed in Traveler in any way. Now, I realize my players will go ahead and tell me their family status, if any, and that's fine. But I just think that can add a lot to story, and I'm really surprised that it's never been an aspect of Traveler. Now, I'm going to throw this out there. If anybody does know of an old chart from one of the other versions of Traveler that I just don't remember, please let me know in the comments below. I'd be interested in reading it. I'm going to jot up my own chart for my players as we go forward so they can roll if they want to decide if they have family and what the family members are. The only reason I see a table to roll for as being a good thing would be here. You have mishaps and you have events. Well, these can actually shape your character very well. So if you have an event, and the event is your commanding officer takes an interest in your career, either gain Tactics Naval 1 or +4 die modifier to your next advancement roll, thanks to their aid. Right there. Okay, there's a commander that took interest in your career. Well, what about your family? Maybe you have a Navy family. Maybe I'm focused on Navy today because that's what everybody will be rolling. It's going to be an active duty campaign aboard an Imperial Naval ship, and my guys have all told me they want to be in the Navy. They don't want to be in the Imperial Navy specifically. They don't want to be some other side branch or be a scientist on board or anything like that. They're interested in having naval characters. But as I said, going through all the rules and stuff, it got me thinking about this question. I've had this question for years. I'm just surprised that there's never been anything in Traveler for it. Again, I realize that my players can just tell me how many family members they have and how active they are with them or anything. But it's just interesting that this is something that Traveler has never really addressed, going through your life from 18 to whatever year you leave active service, or in this case, are in active service, and yet we have no idea of family. Star Trek was usually my go-to for any kind of space stuff, my first go-to, I guess. We famously got to meet James T. Kirk's brother's legs in an episode, and I say that because the brother's already dead by the time we meet him. It's just, they put it in there as a little, hey, Kirk had a brother, but the brother's already gone, they don't want him, and he's the impetus for Kirk being involved in the episode. But I've just always thought that Traveler was kind of missing a bet with not having any kind of chart or information on family ties. And I don't mean the TV show, I mean the character. It's an omission that's been amazing to me. I don't know. I'm going to come up with a chart, as I said, and my players can roll on it or not as they choose. It'll be a completely optional chart. I'm just curious to see which way they're going to lean and how involved they want the family to be. It's not impossible to have a brother who was in the service the same time you were in. I have uncles that were in service the same time as each other. And it made for some interesting stories. They'd come across each other unexpectedly during their service, and then they told some pretty wild stories about some of the stuff that happened. It just made for some good family times, and surprised that Travelers never looked at that aspect of it. But as I said, if there's a part of it that I don't know about, if there's a table out there from an old JTAZ or from the new era or something where I'm just not remembering it, please throw it in the comments below, because I definitely would like to take a look at it. I am going to come up with my own list, I think. I don't know how deep I'm going to go with it. That really is going to depend on my players. But just going through all the character creation stuff made me really look at this and think that maybe there was an element in character creation that's been left out, and maybe it's something that I should look into. So I'm going to. So we're doing our character creation tomorrow night. I'm really excited about it, and this is going to be one of the topics I'm going to bring up to the players. Who are your siblings? Who are your parents? Who are your children? And go from there. I realize that Navy families, maybe they don't have a lot of children because they're not going to be home. They're always on the move. This is not Star Trek Next Gen where they take the families with them. They're going to be aboard a warship. But it's just going to be interesting to find out how my players feel about this. And I've decided I'm not going to make up any kind of chart until after I take their pulse on this and we decide if it's important enough to bother with. But that's really all I've got. It's just kind of a wonder question about family and Traveler. Let me know what you think. Is this something you've ever cared about, or is this something you just kind of hand wave? Is this something you let your player decide? Which is definitely where I lean. I think the players should decide this. But it can be interesting. In an old D&D game, I threw in a family just for grins. I picked one of the players random and said, hey, you grew up on a farm and your family's having a problem. So off the players went to the farm, and I introduced this player's family, and he didn't know anything about this before the game. I had just kind of pulled this on him. He went along with it beautifully. It went very well. And one of the most interesting characters that I created out of that was my player's father. My player's father was a very nice guy, hardworking farmer, very honest, but he didn't chat a lot. He's not a chat guy. He just kind of went about his business, and at family gatherings and stuff just kind of kept his thoughts to himself. Until he met one of the magic users in the group, one of the male magic users, and he just ended up striking up this mammoth friendship where the NPC father was taking the player character around, who wasn't his family member, taking him around, showing off his farm, chatting him up like crazy, because probably like many of you, I've experienced this in real life. You have a family member that famously doesn't talk, they take a shine to one of your friends, and all of a sudden they talk their heads off. I had a buddy whose dad literally didn't say anything to me. I started going over there when I was about 10 years old. His dad didn't say anything to me until after I turned 21. Then I was an adult. I was watching the White Sox game in their family room, waiting for my buddy to be ready to go. And the dad came down, sat down on the couch next to me, and we started talking baseball. And I was completely blown away. It was amazing. I couldn't wait to get outside to tell my buddy. He didn't believe it. And yet, from that point on, every time I saw his dad and I would chat a little bit. He's a nice guy, but he was just a real quiet guy. But he decided I was finally old enough that maybe he could talk to me. I never did know why he did, but he did. And like I said, from that point forward, he and I got along great. And we always got along fine, but it was always at arm's length. After that, we talked baseball a lot. But that's just an example. So let me know what you think. If this is a topic that needs to be addressed in Traveler character creation, or something you want to handle at the table, or something that can just be ignored. Let the players do what they want. It's really up to you. But that's all I've got today on page 121. I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. Please take a look at the Patreon. Help me out there if you can. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Tell your friends. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.